Hey, good people. Welcome to the Evolving Education Project podcast, hosted by me, Dr. Tiffany M. Neachai, and friends, where we center the educational joys, passions, interests, and inquiries of people of color. This is episode 18. Coming up is my conversation with award-winning veteran teacher of 40 years, Stacy Joy, on her experiences over the years, her perspectives and practices regarding culturally and historically responsive teaching, and the changes she would like to see in schools with high populations of students of color. We would like to begin by shouting out the top 3 cities from the past week with the most people who have begun listening to the current series from the beginning, starting at episode 14 and listening all the way through. Coming in at number 1 is Eau Claire, Wisconsin. At number 2 is San Jose, California. And at number 3, we have LA. We appreciate y'all for pressing play and listening in your car, at the gym, on your walk, wherever. We know that when we see a large group of listeners from specific areas, it is most likely due to word of mouth. So thank you to those who are getting the word out. I also want to shout out one of our listeners with the Instagram handle jhurley1212. Thank you for liking a few of our Instagram posts last week. Only the real listeners know to do that. This episode is part 3.3 of our Culturally and Historically Responsive Literacy Now, The Brilliance and Joy of Students of Color series. This is the final episode of this series. To start from the beginning of the series, go to episode 14 and listen all the way through. We don't want you to miss any part of this powerful series, which is inspired by Dr. Gholdy Muhammad's best-selling book, Cultivating Genius, an equity model for culturally and historically responsive literacy, as well as her second book, Unearthing Joy, a guide to culturally and historically responsive teaching and learning. For this episode, we will learn about the veteran teacher work of Stacy Joy, a national board certified teacher, Google certified educator, and 2013 LA County Teacher of the Year. She teaches 5th grade at Baldwin Hills Pilot and Gifted Magnet School in the Los Angeles Unified School District, and she has been teaching for 40 years. Do you hear that? 40 years. We're going to put some respect on Miss Stacy Joy's name, okay? Stacy Joy has also served as a part-time faculty advisor and guiding teacher in UCLA's teacher education program. This interview was originally recorded in the fall of 2021, but it is still so very relevant. Now, let's listen in. And you listen to it. You listen.
You guys are amazing. I love it. Because I'm a podcast fiend and had never heard the name. And I said, why have I missed this?
Wow. We trying to get out there. You know, it's, when you doing like small grassroots stuff and you just doing it for the people.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's harder to get, out there, but hopefully, but people listening, people starting to figure it out and they about to hear about you.
Well, okay. Thank you, Gholdy. Thank you.
I know.
She is the epitome of all things genius.
That's right. That is right. Tell us about yourself. Like, how long have you been teaching? You could tell us, you don't have to tell us the exact school if you don't want to, but maybe like the area where you teach. So tell us about yourself and, what do you do in education and all facets of it?
Well, I have been teaching for 37 years.
Wait a minute. You gotta pause because come on, y'all, everybody at home, you got to clap. You got to clap for Miss Stacy Joy. You said 37 years? Looking like that, you better.
Look, it doesn't make any sense, right? I used to tease and say I started teaching when I was 6 because, I played school.
Right.
And so over the years, I would say, okay, now it's starting to, I can't say 20 years or 30 years because it really was 20 years and then it was 30 years and then it was 35. I started teaching in 1985. So I am starting my 37th
Wow.
year.
We gotta. Do you know this is our veteran teacher? I think this
Yes.
you the first like 37-year teacher teaching that we had on this show.
Ever.
You get all the respect. Okay.
Well, I think that most people don't stay. So it's like, like the 20s and the 30s, you have those, but 37, 40, yeah. So
So
I
you have
I've
seen. I might have to change this whole interview. Wait a minute. You you have seen some things.
Yes.
You have
Yes.
seen some things drastically change and some things
Yes.
drastically stay the same.
Yes.
And the
Yes.
cycles. Can you tell us about that? Like what would like so I'm so excited. Let me get myself together. I gotta get myself together. I'm
I,
like, so,
oh
so
my
like
God.
how did you like how have things like changed? I got so many things. You could go anyway. So these are my things I'm
Okay.
thinking. So how
Okay.
have things changed since you started to now? And what are some things what are some like repetitive cycles that you keep seeing
Mm.
in
Ooh.
education?
Okay. So I'll take you back like just to some of the weird technology changes that like when I think back and say, oh, we used to use a mimeograph machine. And like most people don't even know what that looks like. So when you finish making your copies at the machine, your fingers would be purple.
I remember I was in school in the 80s and the 90s.
Yes.
I remember them purple sheets, the
Yes.
dittos.
Yes, the ditto machine. We'd have to add this fluid into the machine and then the roller would roll and the ink would it was
Oh my
very
God.
archaic.
Oh my God.
We had let's see, what's the thing? Oh, the overhead projector. So
Mm-hmm.
that was old technology. Um, we had the big boom box for our music. Like if we had wanted to play music in the classroom, we had the giant boom box. We had the giant, humongous television. It was like,
Mm-hmm.
the big box kind. Um, and then we had the very scripted curriculum. Here's your
Mm.
teacher's guide. And I think that's how I learned to teach, really, because as a kid, when I played school, that's what I used. I would take my mom was a teacher for 40 years. I would take her books and I'd look through her books and I'd practice teaching. And those were scripted. Like it would say, the teacher says, the student should say, the student should do, but everything was scripted.
Mm.
So that was the from the beginning of my career. And now the things that have stayed the same, unfortunately, the curriculum is very much the same. Not in my school. I have the privilege of teaching in a pilot school where we get to choose our curriculum. So our curriculum is all Black centered. I'm in a school with predominantly African American and Latinx students, so it's wonderful. We get to select our literature, we select our unit themes, we decide our professional development topics. We're very teacher driven and teacher powered. So that is a huge shift. But when I think about education overall and where we are now compared to where we were then, back in the 80s and back in the 70s when I was a student, too many things are still the same. Not enough of our faces in our books.
Yep.
Not enough of our faces in the classrooms as teachers or leaders. And our students are suffering. It hasn't changed.
What are some things that you because I always hear like the veteran teachers say stuff like it'll be like this new mandate or something, and all of the new teachers be like, oh my God, or the like younger teachers will be like, oh my God, we have to do this, and then the veteran teachers like, girl, they did this 10 years ago, and blah 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 blah. And then they gonna do this again. Are there any things like what are some big things that you notice that are like it just keep coming back around? It goes in style, it's in style, and then it goes out of style, and then everybody's like fumbling, but you like, yeah, I've been here before.
Been there. I
Mm-hmm.
would say definitely curriculum choices because
Mm-hmm.
we still see like even our school, even though we can make our own choices and use other books, we're still receiving as a school the Basil Reader, and it's an anthology.
What?
And here's the book that all children are reading from. Or then they'll say, now we're doing thematic teaching. And it's like, that was the same thing that they did 10 years ago, but now they're calling it something different. But it's all the same.
Mm-hmm.
The practices are a little bit different because hopefully we're learning new things with technology, and now we're not as paper, pencil, textbook driven, but same mandates, same Common Core is the same as all the other standards from the 80s and 90s. What's different? They still don't center us.
You better say that, Miss Joy. I don't know what I'm supposed to call you because now I got to be respectful. Wait a minute. We got
Don't do that.
We got a legend up in here. We got a legend. We got a historian. We got a veteran. Listen, I respect my veteran teachers now.
I love you for that, but don't do it. You can call me whatever you want. Call me Stacy. Call me Joy. A lot of people call me Joy because they forget it's my last name and they think it's my first name. So,
okay. Well, Miss Joy.
Yeah.
Because I'm so excited. Okay, let me relax. I can't even get myself together. I'm just so excited. I had no idea.
Oh my gosh.
So, tell us about yourself. What do you do in education in all facets of it? And you could tell us about your career. You can give us like, how you wound up because I'm sure you weren't always in a school that centered Black people and Black history. So maybe you can tell us about that journey towards, your career and how you got to the space that you are now and what you do in education.
Okay, so when I first started teaching, I was at a school in what they would typically call South Central LA. It was, I'll say 50% Black and Latinx. And the majority of our expectations were always driven around standards, and whatever the text was, they made us make sure we're meeting those goals and teaching to the test, making sure our students are ready for the next level. It was always just so skills-based and dry. And then I found myself in a program called the Proficiency in English program. And the name, they would just call themselves the PEP program for the acronym. And they came to the school and they said, we do oral, what do you call it? Like performances. They said, we'll have the students learn poetry and we want students to perform and we want to develop their confidence with speaking. And it just felt right. Like I was like, okay, now this is a little bit more like what I need, because I've always been a writer, poet, and lover of performance. So I thought, here we have it. This is what I need. And that was like the first time I felt like, now I see the joy in the students. Now I see something that makes us want to keep pushing and keep learning and keep growing. And they did these annual contests and we would like compete with other schools, and it was just big fun.
Wow.
But I think that's when I realized, because that program centered around getting our students, our Black and brown students, ready for the workforce, ready for college. So they focused on teaching them how to be confident on stage, learning how to use conversational English in any setting, wherever you are, be ready to speak and be ready to, just be proud of yourself. But it was also rooted in history. So I feel like that was like the very first beginnings of them dropping little seeds of how to cultivate joy and genius and really good teaching in me. And then, of course, later then in my students. So I stayed at that school. Believe it or not, I've only been in 2 schools. I stayed at that school for 12 years.
Yo, you is a G. I don't care.
Okay.
You a G. Go ahead. You've been in teaching for 37 years and you only been at 2 schools. You are reliable, okay? I cannot. This is just everything.
Look, either that or I don't do change very well.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
It's okay. So I stayed at that school for 12 years. And I'll say that I left only because I felt like what was being expected of us from the leadership standpoint wasn't quite jiving with me.
Mm-hmm.
And you know when your administrator is just taking you the wrong direction.
Yep.
So I said, okay, it's time to go.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out I'm teaching now in the school where when I was a little girl, I lived in the neighborhood of my school, but there was the boundary of if you live on this side, you go to that school, and if you live on that side, you go to this school. So the school where I'm teaching is the school I used to want to go to, but my mother said, you can't go there because it's not our neighborhood school, and it's really mostly white kids.
Wow.
That was the history of that school at that time. But the school where with the school where I actually attended was our neighborhood school, stayed there, and it was fine. But it's just such an odd feeling to think I'm teaching where I once wanted to be a student. So I've been at this school the rest of my career, so 24 or 5 years.
Wow.
Then I also did some work with UCLA. I've done the guiding teacher position and faculty advisor position for their teacher ed program. Really, really a passion of mine is to help teachers who want to be effective teachers someday. It just doesn't happen overnight. And a lot of times they'll sit in the room and say, oh, I want to be able to do that. How do you make that happen? It's like, hey, you have to spend time. Can't hand them the manual and say, this is how you become an effective teacher.
Nope.
Yeah, so I've done that. I'm National Board Certified Teacher. I did that in the year 2000, so 20 years of that. And then I was, my most proud accomplishment was the 2013 LA County Teacher of the Year, because there were only 16 of us selected in LA County, and they said, realize that this is out of 70,000 plus teachers, and you're the 16, and I was the only African American.
Oh my goodness.
So I was like, yes. But they didn't choose me for State Teacher of the Year. I didn't get to compete for that, but that's okay.
That's okay. We know you all of that.
Yeah,
we know
yeah.
you all of that. You are.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
That's right. That's right. You are a teacher. So what are you doing now in education? So like, what do you teach now? Or are you still working with other teachers and things like that? And what do you do with in education now?
So I'm a 5th grade teacher, and I still do mentor with the new teachers. I don't have, I'm not in the teacher ed program right now, but I do have like mentees through the district that I work with. So I still mentor and I still teach, and I'm excited because I'm also really, really passionate about like whatever's new and different that's changing the trajectory of education. So I'm like constantly learning and constantly sharing. So
do y'all hear this? Do y'all hear Miss Joy? She has been teaching for 37 years. 37 years, and she's still learning and still trying to improve and still trying to. Do you hear this? I'm just.
And can I just say that it really is a shame that even on the weekends, I'm still lesson planning and still trying to figure out why I don't have free weekends. What is wrong with this picture?
Yeah, we're going to have to fix that, Miss Joy.
Gosh, I need an assistant.
Yes. Right. That's that 37 years, and you still you really out here working, Miss Joy.
I feel like I am. I think my body knows it too.
Yes. So transport us to your 5th grade classroom. Okay. What would we find? What would we see? What would we feel? And what would be happening?
My first thought is to just like let you see, but there are so many different activities within one space. So when I like in the mornings, I feel like I see a peaceful, calm space. I usually play some calming like meditation music or ocean waves music in the morning. The agenda's on the board. The students come in. It's very peaceful. And within about 30, 40 minutes, it's like we hit the ground running. And I say that I just don't believe in wasted time.
Yeah.
And so, that typical downtime that a lot of new teachers experience, it's like, oh, there's too much downtime. You got to, yeah, that never happens. I tell my students, if you don't have something to do, then I have failed. Something is wrong, because everybody should have something to do all the time.
I know that's right.
Right. Don't say, what do I do when I'm finished? You've never finished. If I'm still here, how can you be finished?
Listen.
Right? So that's the feel. That's what I see. Before the pandemic, I had beanbag chairs and yoga chairs, and they'd sit in the cozy little library area on the rug, and they'd bundle up and read books, and it was beautiful. Now we can't do that.
I know.
No touching and sharing of anything anymore, and that's been like the hardest thing for me, to see my space now as this kind of like, the library is a little more sterile and it's not as inviting because I can't bring the chairs in. It's there, but it's just not the same.
Yeah.
But my goal is to make the room feel like a loving, caring space for both of us, my students and for me, because I have to be there as long as they have to be there.
That's true.
So it needs to feel good, needs to smell good.
Listen.
Hello. Fifth graders. They get a little stinky around December.
That's
so we keep the room smelling fresh. But I'll share this, and I don't know if you want me to go into further detail with it or just give you a little snapshot. But one thing that is kind of like what I'm known for in my classroom is middle school day. And that's when I become 4 different people. So I can teach my 5th graders how to get ready for middle school and prepare for these 4 different personalities and teachers they're going to have. And I dress up and I act like I'm the history teacher. I'm Miss Tubman. I'm an ancestor of Harriet Tubman. I do a whole history lesson with just this whole new persona. Then they leave out of the room. They get 6 minutes like they would in middle school to go get their stuff and take a break and get some water. And they come right back in the same room. And now I am Miss Pimdas. And Miss Pimdas is the math teacher who has this attitude, and she's just serious about teaching math. And PIMDAS stands for Please Excuse My Dear Aunt Sally, the Order of Operations in Math. Yeah. So they figure that out throughout that period. They're like, what is her name? So then I shift into this really carefree spirit for their creative writing and drama teacher. And we just have a blast. And then they go into their science or their elective. I decide each year I'd have to decide what's it. Either it'll be science or it'll be something different, like PE. One year I did PE and they had to go out and run laps and I was blowing the whistle and they were like, why is she making us run? So that's kind of the other thing that I kind of feel like is what I'm known for. And that's what they expect when they get to me in 5th grade. It's like, are we going to have middle school day? Because the other students around the school see it. And they're like, why is Miss Joy walking around with that thing on her head and those weird glasses? And who is she? What is she doing? So that's me.
So cool. That's so cool. And that's so fun to get them a creative way to get them ready. For now they're going to have a whole bunch of different teachers and they're going to be switching class. I used to be a 7th and 8th grade teacher, so I would have really appreciated that.
I can't even imagine how you did that.
Yes, 7th and 8th grade.
Kudos.
And listen, I wanted to be a 2nd grade teacher, but I got stuck in 7th and 8th grade. My principal was like, oh, you can handle these kids. I got stuck in there. I was like,
yeah,
I'm gonna teach the little babies.
Yeah, no. If you could handle that, then that's where you needed to be.
That's where I needed to be.
That's beautiful.
Okay, so I believe that teachers must possess particular beliefs about students of color in education in order to embody and enact culturally and historically responsive teaching. So what do you believe to be true about students of color and education?
Ooh, that's a good question. So the word believe is part of my mantra: conceive it, believe it, and you will achieve it. And I've been saying that to my students probably all of my 37 years because my mother told me that. And it's something about believing something deep in your heart and knowing that you can have that. It's like, it's faith, but it's also just like a strong sense of knowing you have power.
Mm-hmm.
And when students think they can do something, usually they do it. But what happens with students of color is they've been beat up, mistreated, miseducated, harmed for so long that sometimes when we get them, they don't even see it. They don't even know what to see. I ask a student, what do you want to do to change the world someday? Not what do you want to do when you grow up, because they grow up tomorrow. Tomorrow they're taller or bigger in 2 weeks. What do you want to do that will change the world someday? Or what problem do you think you'll solve when you have a career? That's a hard question for a 9-year-old, but they have to be able to see that. If someone says, I want to stop the homelessness problem, that's something they can see. Mm-hmm. So what do you believe? What is it that you feel in your heart you could do? And I had a student last year during the pandemic even telling me he was going to start putting together care packages and try to help the people who are homeless. And I said, that's carrying out something that you saw, something that you believed, so you can achieve it. And it's pretty simple once you see it, but a lot of times students don't see it. So I feel like teachers, educators, leaders, administrators, people in decision-making positions, we have to do something more to where we're able to provide our students, the students of color, with everything that they could possibly see that could reflect something they can become. Mm-hmm. Because if they open a book and they see Vice President Kamala Harris, now they know they couldn't be a vice president of the United States and be a female. Mm-hmm. When they saw President Barack Obama, they saw it, they knew it. It's now we know we can be the president of the United States. Before that, what did they see? Mm-hmm. And then is that something that they believe, well, this is only for the old white guy? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just like if you ask your students, draw a picture of a scientist.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're never drawing the Black scientist. If you ask your students, draw a picture of a judge in a courtroom. It just depends on what they've been exposed to, what they've been taught, what they are able to see in the curriculum that we provide for them. We have to give it to them.
Yeah.
That's our job. Mm-hmm. I don't even remember your question. Let me get off my soapbox.
It was good. It was good. So, thinking of everything you said, how do you cultivate genius within students of color?
Well, okay, I'll say it goes back to first remembering that students, anyone, like Dr. Angelo says, they will remember how you made them feel. They may forget what you told them, but they will remember how you made them feel. Mm-hmm. I make them believe that they are geniuses. Mm-hmm. I tell them there's a secret at the very beginning of the year. There's a big secret that I will share with them, but they have to promise not to tell anyone. And I whisper it and I say, I was chosen to be your teacher because you are the geniuses in the school. And they think I'm the only one who can teach you because you're such geniuses. But don't tell, because then the other students will think they're not geniuses. So we got to keep it a secret. And it's like from day one, they're like, whoa, where, what? Okay, that's first. Mm-hmm. Second is continuing to affirm their greatness. Yes. Because if they're not hearing it at home enough, or they're not hearing it at school enough, or in the previous years of their schooling, now's the time. Let me continue to remind you how great you are. Mm-hmm. For example, one student said to me, he's drawing his picture, and, you know, we do something with art every week, and he's drawing, and he says, how does this look to you, Miss Joy? I said, oh, it's beautiful. I love it. And he says, I don't like it. I don't think it's very good. I'm not very good in art. I said, how dare you talk about my scholar like that? Mm. Who said you could talk to my scholar like that?
That's
I
right.
said, now you apologize to yourself. And he's like, okay, sorry. I said, now you might not be as good of an artist as you want to be, but you can't say you're bad at art or this isn't pretty or this is, don't do that. I said,
That's right.
you can simply say, it's okay. I'm going to continue to work on it. I said, because who's perfect? There are no artists in our classroom that are perfect artists anyway. That's important because they tend to think that their weaknesses are permanent. And unfortunately, math, art, sometimes writing, but math and art are the times I hear it the most. I'm no good in math. Oh, I can't draw. And I just say, you are such a brilliant scholar. So you just need to develop your skills in art. Let's work at it. And then I show them my terribly awkward looking house that doesn't look like a house when I draw it on the board. And I'm like, see, but I can work at it. And then I fix it up and it's better.
Yeah.
Just a matter of telling them who they are and showing them that they matter. Because if I'm showing them how much they mean to me and how much their work reflects how smart they are and how brilliant they are, half the battle's done.
Yeah.
Because it's all in their minds.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay. So what, so this is a great question to ask you, somebody who's been teaching for 37 years,
Uh-oh.
right? Uh, so what does, so when you read the book, Cultivating Genius, and you've done a lot of teaching, you've read a lot of things, you've seen a lot of things come and go, you've seen a lot of things repeat itself. So what did this book offer you that is different from what you already know and learned about good teaching?
It came right on time. So I read Cultivating Genius during the summer of 2020. And I was attending every single webinar I could click, yes, I'm registered for. From Dr. Muhammad's to Dr. Bettina Love to Dr. Celia Ruiz, Dr. Dina Simmons. When I say I was registering, and something happened between the time I read that book and attending all of the webinars. It was like the book lit this fire. And so I'm feeling this burning, like I've got to find this. Yeah. Whatever this is in this book that's revolutionizing teaching and learning, this is what I have to be able to embody when I face my students the next time. Because I had no idea what to expect after the summer of 2020. So I literally soaked up so much of what Dr. Muhammad put in her book and then in her webinars. I was kind of almost stalkerish. Like, I'm looking for, where is she next? Where is she next? And it was funny because we had this conversation about, I said, here I am trying to be in every session with Gholdy Muhammad. And then she laughs and says, girl, I was wondering, wait a minute, I need to follow you. And I'm thinking, not yet. But it's just funny because it's almost like you hear someone's voice first. If you're reading it, you're hearing them through the book. And then you might catch a podcast and then you see the webinar and it all starts to formulate this amazing experience that is meant to transform us. Yes. And it doesn't always happen. So when it happens, it's like you have to run with it. So what I did after those sessions and reading the book, I sat down and I said to myself, what can I do that I'm feeling like is part of this, using these 5 pursuits, part of cultivating genius, knowing who my scholars are, developing their identity. What can I do? And I realized, like you said, 37 years, you've got some stuff in your tool belt, girl, use it. So I started thinking, what am I doing at the very beginning of every year when I'm doing the get to know you stuff, because get to know you is identity. So I had to think about it, and I was like, okay, I'm going to call those projects and activities that I do at the beginning of the year for identity genius projects. I've heard of Genius Hour. I looked it up once a couple years ago, and I was like, yeah, that's something Googly does, that stuff where they do something for 20% of the time. I don't know. I don't even know how it goes. But anyway, I saw this Cultivating Genius. These projects are genius projects because I'm cultivating the genius through these projects. So one of them that we came up with for the first project of the year is called a Me Box. And I'm sure you've seen something similar. Students decorate a box to show all about themselves. They can put things inside the box that are like mementos or little memorabilia for themselves. But how do you take that a step further and make it more about I'm developing and cultivating identity?
Yep.
So typically, like, here's my box, da, da, da. So I said, no, we're going to do a recording. I want you to, I don't know if you're familiar with Flipgrid, but they made Flipgrid recordings in order to reach a broader audience, because then you're now seeing how other students are reflecting themselves in their boxes, and it can be shared school-wide. It can be shared outside the school on our website. And they started to feel more proud. It was like, this is my box and this is my commercial. Then we did something called Genius Boards. So I'm sure you've heard of a vision board. A Genius Board is the board that's all about the genius in you and all those people and things that inspire and cultivate the genius in you.
I love that.
Right? And I was like, okay, what do we do next? So it just it was like a snowball. But the one that I said, it blew me away, because during the pandemic, mind you, remote learning, and I'm thinking of all these new things and fun things to do, but can't put my hands on anything with them. So in my head, I had to say, don't think about what will happen if this goes wrong. Think, what if this goes right? Yes. What if this goes so well that it sparks a flame and another fire, and then more things start to happen? Okay, so we went with our next project, which was Genius Poetry.
Ooh.
So I used Ntozake Shange's book, poem, I Live in Music. Used that poem. Students got into it. They loved it. I took a little bit of the poem and rewrote it to fit a frame for them to work from. They rewrote theirs and made their I Live In poems their own. So like one little girl did I Live In Song. Another one did I Live in Engineering, because she wants to be an engineer. They wrote their poems. They created these beautiful visuals to include all of the things that were included in their poem. And then I taught them how to add an audio voiceover to the slide so that they could recite it like Ntozake Shange does in hers. Because I want them to learn spoken word and be able to feel good about coming out and using your voice and sharing it. Oh, I was floored. So I said, so something I've had always done was the Me Box, but then it became the vision board, then it became the genius poems. And then it was like, now we're going to focus on careers and colleges, and we take that another step. Everything just started to spiral. And I said, this is what I needed. And I did it during the pandemic. So it's like, we said learning loss and all the things that didn't go, blah, blah, blah. Oh, it was phenomenal. Yeah. It was a phenomenal year, thanks to Cultivating Genius. And then it led to my being able to do some sessions and workshops for my district, and the superintendent's organization called and wanted a presentation on it. So it's like, here we go. Thank you, Dr. Muhammad.
Thank you, Gholdy.
Yes. Gholdy.
Yes, I love it. I love it. Okay. So from what I have heard through this whole interview, okay, and through the recommendation that you are somebody I needed to interview, I know you a high quality teacher, okay? And I know you were already doing so many things well in your classrooms in your work with students and with teachers, with mentoring teachers, everything. So how does culturally and historically responsive literacy challenge you or push you, and how does it add to your classroom practice and curriculum?
So I would say that in addition to the projects that I just shared, we're spending time now as a grade level looking at our units, and we're rewriting them with the 5 pursuits. We're looking at why we do what we do, and is this meeting the need that we have? Because a lot of times we're doing things over and over just because it's what you've always done. But now it's time to shift and pivot. And so we are consciously thinking, what am I doing and why am I doing it? Instead of just, here's my book and my page and here's the lesson. For example, in our district, and I'm not sure if this is across nationwide, but in our district, because it's such a large district, we have the challenge now of creating an ELA unit following the model and a math unit following the model. So because I've had, so much training with it and worked on it so much, I feel like I was kind of ahead of the game a little bit, because that was what I started doing in August of 2020.
Right.
But I do see now the difference in even what I'm saying when I'm talking to my students. Like, for example, if I said, I'll give the example of the Great Migration. So during the pandemic, it's like I'm teaching them about the Great Migration, but there's no context for it in the real world. Like they couldn't see, like, why would people just be leaving and going from the South to the North? So I was challenged with thinking, when those people got to the train station to leave and they saw those National Guards there, does that remind you of anything that we've seen here in 2020 or 20? And they were like, oh, the National Guards at the insurrection of the Capitol. And it was like, it turned into this huge discussion. And then now it all starts to make sense, how history is repeating itself and the systemic issues are still present. And everything now is just so much clearer to me. I had to see the need to teach the truth and to connect everything that ever happened that was harmful to something that turned beautiful, or something that became a movement for change, or something that became the next person who's going to speak up and make laws change. So it definitely impacts pretty much everything I'm doing now. I don't do anything now without saying, why am I doing this? And is this the truth? Someone had the nerve to ask me the other day, are we celebrating Columbus Day?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Look, I just looked around and this was a student. I looked around my classroom. I said, does anyone here want to respond to that? And thank goodness the student who responded knew exactly what to say. I said, oh, your teacher last year taught you well. And so that's why, to me, it has to be school wide, because what if those students, all those students last year, only learned about Columbus Day as Columbus Day?
Yep.
Then I have now on my shoulders the undoing.
Yep.
Yeah. No.
And I love how you say it has to be school wide. Like I'm even seeing it at the university level. I'm a assistant professor, and we push certain social justice type things, and it has to be across a department, across a college. It can't just be if you get this professor. And I felt like that when I was a classroom teacher. I felt like if you get me, I know you're going to get this. And it shouldn't be like that, right?
Right.
It's not, first of all, it's not a competition. All of these kids are our babies, right? Even at the collegiate level, they're all our students, right? And so we should all be wanting them to do well. And it shouldn't just be and think critically. And it shouldn't just be if it's my research, right?
Right.
Because we need this for the world.
Exactly.
right? I don't get to say, I'm a literacy person and I don't get to say, well, I'm really interested in social justice. So I don't really feel like I should have to teach, the nuts and bolts of writing development. I don't get to say that.
Nope.
I still got to teach writing development. I
Exactly.
still got to teach reading development and phonemic awareness and phonics and all that. I still have to teach that to future teachers. So
Mm-hmm.
why is it that we get to opt out of
Opt out.
this part? And that leads me to my next question. Actually, in our conversation with Dr. Gholdy Muhammad, she shared that criticality is one area of her framework that often gets ignored. Do you
Mm-hmm.
agree? And how do you combat this? Additionally, what suggestions do you have for teachers that may be leaving out the criticality aspect of the framework?
Yes, that's heavy. I totally agree that criticality is often ignored. I would also say that identity and joy are ignored too, though.
Mm-hmm.
And if we spend more time on identity and joy, I think the criticality will almost come naturally.
Mm.
Because if you think about it, what teacher wouldn't want their scholars to question the world around them?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're always asking them why.
Yep.
So why wouldn't you want to question everything that you're seeing around you? What teacher wouldn't want to ask their children, why do you think certain people were oppressed? Why do you think this is harming to our people? Why do you think these people had to fight for women's rights? It's the basic understanding. We always ask why.
Yep.
So if you feel safe with your identity and you feel the joy of who you are and your students also feel it, you can ask those why questions. Those hard conversations can be had with no threat.
Yep.
And they feel safe responding honestly. I mean, when those students told me that they remembered the National Guards at the insurrection of the Capitol, I'm thinking, if I hadn't made that connection,
Mm-hmm.
from the Great Migration scene in the train station to the insurrection at the Capitol, they may have always separated two big events and thought they were nothing reflective of one another, and they are exactly the same.
Yeah.
It's brutality.
Mm-hmm.
And it's inhumane. It's oppression.
Mm-hmm.
So if I can feel safe in saying to my students, I have some wonderful, fun, exciting lessons planned for us, but I also have some very difficult ones that require us to think and question and really like challenge why the world is the way it is. I should be able to do that.
Yep.
And every teacher should be able to do that, regardless of their nationality.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's on period.
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 Got that.
Okay.
Got it.
So what advice would you give a new teacher who is fearful of teaching it in these ways?
Girl.
I done got the girl.
Okay, so, I got in trouble a lot as a kid because I spoke my mind.
Mm-hmm.
I spoke the truth.
Mm-hmm.
I got popped for it.
Mm-hmm.
I can only hear my mother saying to me right now, you have to tell the teachers the truth.
Mm.
So if somebody were to say to me, I'm afraid, I don't know if I can teach that, then you don't need to teach.
Mm.
Because we don't need anyone in the classroom teaching lies.
Ooh.
We don't need anyone in the classroom afraid to disrupt and dismantle all of these systemic racist issues that we face today. We don't need them in the classroom. Bye-bye.
Mm.
We need people who are brave. We need people who are courageous. We need people who are forthright. If you can't do that, you're not cut out to teach. Because that's not teaching.
No.
That's just lying.
Oop. Oop.
I mean, if you're not going to teach the truth, then you're lying.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you sleep at night? if you're knowing that you're not teaching the truth. Every untruth that I ever taught, I taught it because I was taught that untruth as well.
Yep.
And then I had to undo and unlearn and get my new information and my new truths and fix it.
Yep.
So if you can strengthen your understanding, like I said, to me, it starts with identity and joy, because the criticality is the part that's hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you can strengthen your understanding of who you are, what you stand for, what you won't stand for, if you know what brings you joy in that classroom, what brings you joy when you see those faces, even the ones that drive you crazy,
Mm-hmm.
then you can say, I can do this.
Right.
Those are that's the meat of just being a human. And then the criticality is like, now let's question humanity. Let's question why people in power, people are oppressive. Let's question it. Let's fight it. Let's stand up against it. And we have people that we look at as our models to watch us do it. We're not alone. Call on your ancestors.
Mm-hmm.
Be brave.
Mm.
But those teachers, yeah, if I have to have that conversation, I have to be honest, because I'm tired of the people in there teaching the stupid stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like Gholdy says, we can't be basic.
Mm-mm. Can't afford to.
Mm-mm. And janky.
And janky. Oh yeah, that sounds like a Gholdy. She do be saying janky a lot. Your teaching is janky.
Yeah. Yeah.
She do say
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember I ran into, so after I left the classroom to get my PhD, I ran into some of my former colleagues that I used to, teachers I used to work with.
Mm-hmm.
And the school that I taught in was the majority of the students were African American. Some were the children or the grandchildren of Black immigrants, like from the Caribbean, or but the
Okay.
Caribbean rather. From the Caribbean. But the majority of them were African Americans. And a lot of those teachers, they were white teachers. By the time when I ran into them a few years later while I was in the middle of school, they had now worked, out in the suburbs. They had left that school. A lot of us left for a lot of different reasons. And so I ran into them and I was like, oh yeah, are you doing this? So I'm learning more now because I'm able to do a deep study, because I'm not doing so many things, right? And so I'm learning more, and I'm learning all of these things, and I'm like, oh, are you reading this? Are you doing like critical stuff? Like telling them, oh well, I don't work with students of color anymore. I only work with white students. So I'm like, and this was a person that I thought was actually got it. Like I actually thought this person got it a little bit. I didn't think they were perfect. But I really thought I really respected this person as like, you may have some work to do, but you get it. You get like, for you to say something like that, I'm like, what were y'all doing here in these urban schools? Just playing school till you got the job you wanted?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And so now you don't have to teach about none of this stuff. You get to be mediocre, not challenge yourself, talk about how to use Post-it notes. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And I'm just like you said,
the real criticality,
right? But like that's what really, like, how do you sleep at night? How do you I just don't understand all of the stuff we did at that school. I don't understand how you come from a school like that and not forever be changed. So what were you doing here? Like just playing? Just biding your time till you get the job you really want? Like, I'm just, it really breaks my heart. Maybe I was naive. I think I was really naive that people really had the good intentions, even if they didn't do everything. And I just really, like, my eyes opened. Okay.
That just goes to show you how easy it is to fake it. Because it happens all the time. And until we get called on it, or something is brought to our attention, and now here's the new program and the new way we're doing things, they get to keep faking it. It's horrible.
Woo! So we got our last question, Miss Joy, because I need you. I got the last question, but you could talk. I'll talk to you all night. I got something to do, I could do that at 5 a.m. Listen, you is everything. Whatever you want to do, but this is my last question. But
Okay,
we will
okay.
end when you want to end, Miss Joy. I just need you to understand that.
I love you. Oh my God.
When you want to end, okay?
Okay.
But here's the question. What is your dream for the educational experiences of students of color and for schools more broadly?
Well, let's begin with the Dr. Muhammad Cultivating Genius Academy for Educators. Can we make that happen?
Woo! I hope you listening, Dr. Muhammad.
The Cultivating Genius Academy for Educators. I'm already calling it the CGA, Cultivating Genius Academy. Look, the teachers, administrators, anyone in education has to go through the academy to prove that they are ready to implement the historically and literacy responsive framework. They have to.
Ooh.
Then we can talk about redesigning curriculum, rewriting the standards.
Yes.
We're not even going to call them standards. They'll be the new pursuits, all that. That is, to me, the dream. Because if we can start with what she's already given us,
Yep.
that's it. That's where we go straight up. Can't go down from there.
That's right.
Then we have to change assessments. We have to change teacher training.
Yes.
Because even if they've gone through the academy, that's one thing. They know how to do that. But the actual teacher training has to change.
Yep.
Evaluations, teacher evaluation. And how about leadership, administrative evaluations?
Ooh.
Who's evaluating the administrator?
Yeah.
Their boss?
Who never be in the building?
Hello? So yeah, we've incorporated in our school, because we've had the freedom to do that, a principal evaluation. And that's why, because you don't get to work a whole school year and have no feedback.
Right.
But yet you can pop in and, and do feedback
And
for
give
teachers.
feedback.
But that would be the other piece. And then the schools have to change, the actual schools themselves. I'm sure I have desks that are at least 20 years old. Whereas the school on the west side has all brand new furniture. Why is that? Our school happens to have a charter school co-located on our campus, and the charter school has new furniture, but not us. That's not okay. The schools have to change.
Yep.
Whoever is making decisions about who gets what, that's got to change.
Yep.
I'll say that the last thing I would dream for is that the students walk into classrooms where they can question power, they can question privilege,
Yes.
they can question oppression, they can expect justice, they can expect humanity, they can expect love, they can expect joy, and they can learn and feel safe. That's my dream. Get that school open. Make it happen. CGA. Oh, look, it could just be a school. So the Cultivating Genius Academy could be the training thing, but then there could be the school, the like Cultivating Genius elementary school, middle school, high school,
college. Dr. Muhammad, we got work for you. We got more stuff for you. I hope you listening, Dr. Muhammad.
We got plans. We got plans.
We got plans for you. Miss Joy, Miss Joy got plans for you, okay?
Look, conceive it, believe it.
Yes.
You will achieve it.
You will. Miss Joy, is there anything else you want to share with us? Because I'm just so honored to have you. You just made my whole night.
Oh, goodness. I feel like I have talked so much that I don't even know if I've said everything I should say. But I'm sure that I've shared what needed to be shared.
Yes.
I'm not one for dragging things on because I might go in the wrong direction. So.
Well, we enjoyed it. I thank you so much for coming to the Evolving Education Project, sharing your wisdom with us, your history, your experiences, your theorizing, and your
Aw,
dreams.
thank you. Thank you. It was a pleasure. I'm so honored and I appreciate you.
I still can't get over the fact that Miss Stacy Joy has been teaching since the mid-1980s. But what I love about her the most is that after all these years, she is still approaching her teaching craft as a learner and creating genius lessons and projects for students along the way. I think teachers would stay in the teaching profession longer if they worked at teacher-driven and teacher-powered schools like Miss Joy does. She offered so many other schooling possibilities for teachers and students when she shared her culturally and historically responsive teaching, schooling dreams with us. Overall, I am compelled and inspired to carry out something that I've seen and something that I believe as Miss Joy instructs her fifth graders every day. Thank you for listening to part 3.3 of our Culturally and Historically Responsive Literacy Now, the Brilliance and Joy of Students of Color series. And a special thank you to everyone who listened to the entire series. If something from this episode resonated with you, please share it with others and let us know. Tune in next week for our next episode. Trust, you do not want to miss that. To find out more about the Evolving Education Project, to write in, or to join our listserv, check us out at evolvingeducationproject.com. And please subscribe to this podcast and follow us on Instagram, X, and Facebook. If you can only choose one, please follow us on Instagram and love all of our posts. Support that doesn't cost a dime. If you've been enjoying our podcast, you can also support us by writing a review. Favorable reviews help more educators, organizers, families, communities, and activists find us. We hope to continue to cultivate an authentic audience and community. We want you to help us to evolve over time and shape what this could be. Now that you know what we're about, let us know what you want to learn more about, authors that you would like us to interview, discussions you would like to have. Also, please write in by sharing your stories, dilemmas, joys, a related incident that made you laugh, questions, disbeliefs, hopes, and more when it comes to people of color. You can write in through the website, but if you ain't got time for all that, I get it. Write in by sending us a DM through any of our social media outlets. And if you don't want to type it out, you can write in by sending us a voice memo, audio recording, or video. All of this counts as a write-in. Okay, who should write in? Children and youth of color, parents and caregivers of children and youth of color, traditional and non-traditional educators, students, teachers, leaders, administrators from early childhood to higher ed, activists, organizers, artists, authors, community workers and leaders, nonprofit, not-for-profit folks, and anyone who loves people of color, is invested in their humanity, their past, their presence, and futures, and wants to make social justice a reality. We will discuss your write-ins on the show anonymously unless you tell us otherwise, so don't miss it. Tune in next Wednesday for a new episode. Okay, that's all for now, good people. We out.